We're back. It's been a little while. Episode 41. Still sponsored by Manscaped for this week as well. So more on that later. But just catching up with Zyrene. We haven't seen each other in a couple of weeks. He's in a new location, as you guys will see. But we have a bunch of interesting topics today. The first topic, very interesting, Hunter DST news. I always like talking about hunters and your need for trinkets.
I love talking about Hunter DST. This reminds me of like stuff we said a long time ago.
A long time ago, yeah.
People got mad at us for this.
Yeah. There's gonna be a fun topic, and of course, there's the
people got mad at us, or if they got mad at me in particular.
Oh, they got mad at Zyrene. Zyrene got flamed a lot for this stuff, but it's coming full circle now. So we're gonna talk about that. And we've got obviously the Phase 5 PTR stuff, TBC release timing, Season 3 is ending, and we got a lot of RAF stuff to talk about because they released a huge amount of information about RAF, and there's been multiple developer interviews that have given more tidbits and insights into that as well. So yeah, we got a lot of stuff to talk about. But first, let's talk about hunters, guys.
Yeah, let's talk about the green boys.
Hunters. You guys are literally, I feel like hunters right now, you guys are the most untrustworthy class when it comes to, like, when I'm trying to find information and stuff, I don't know if I can trust hunters anymore.
Ever since TBC started, hunters have been the most untrustworthy class, because they were like, it was the whole propaganda of like, hunters are going to be the best class by far, and they were like not good in, and I think people had like a chip on their shoulder because they were not good in like classic. And then all these warriors are like re-rolling and going hunter and stuff and like changing over. And now like half of them have gone back and shit. So, yeah.
So for people that don't know, this will be news to a lot of them because they don't know. I was talking to Veramos, who is in charge of the hunter bis lists and things for Wildhead. And he's the guy that people look at when they're like, what's the hunter bis for this phase? Like, it's Veramos. He's the one that makes the lists usually. And he was telling me, Hunter DST is no longer BIS in Phase 5 with the updated sims and everything. It turns out that active Berserker's Call is very, very good. And
is it because you can stack it with with rapid fire
with all your cooldowns and everything? The actives are very. It's almost like Zyrene may have said similar comments in Phase 1, and he got flamed for saying those exact comments. But basically, DST, it's like, depending on the length of the fight, obviously, but on average, we're talking 15 DPS below BIS in Phase 5. If we're talking about the Nauru shard and the
like a Nauru sliver.
Yeah, the sliver. The Nauru sliver and the Berserker's Call. It's actually 15 DPS below. So no longer BIS, and it just, man, it really calls into question the whole hunters.
Like this was one of the things too. Is correct me if I'm wrong here. Some of the hunters in chat, okay, hunters in chat, press 1 if you're a hunter, because I think all of you are at this point right now. Whenever you ask somebody if they play a class, everybody plays it. Pets gain a percentage of your attack power, right? I'm pretty sure your pets gain a percentage of your attack power as a hunter. I mean, you could get on a hunter right now and try it. If you pop like Bloodlust Brooch and your pet gets more AP, obviously the value of the trinket's higher, right? Because like one of my arguments against DST for the longest fucking time was DST helps 70% of your character, right? Even if it was like 100% boost to 70% of your character, it's still only a 70% increase for your overall output. Whereas like a warrior, if it was like 80% increase to them, they would still better than giving it to a hunter, right? Like we said from the start, like it's better to give to hunter, it's better to give to rogues and warriors. Like warriors is like number 1 in rogues and stuff like that. And then it was like, we had a big old list where like down at the bottom it was rep paladins. Sorry, boys. but hunters, it was always just like, this thing does not help them that much, right?
I mean, and they need to like adjust to the haste to really fully benefit from the DST as well, right? Yep. They're constantly having to adjust to the procs of the DST, which a lot of hunters, they claim they're doing, but then when you look at actual logs, a lot of hunters are not doing that. They are not doing that.
Yeah, they'll clip their shots. It's the same thing with Rep Paladin, why DST is like, here's the thing, right? Is DST is good for Rep Paladins? Absolutely. It's absolutely good for them. But for a large percentage of Rep Paladins, they're not going to use it correctly, which is sad, right? It's just going to throw them off. And that's one of the things too, where as a rep paladin, you miss like a single twist, you lost a lot of damage there. Right? If you fuck up a single twist, if you mess up your rotation, it would have just been better to have a different trinket on, because you lost like maybe like 2,000, 3,000 damage, and there's no way the DST is going to make up 2,000, 3,000 damage in that proc versus like another trinket you could have had. So yeah, if you fuck yourself out of a twist or anything like that. It's the same thing with hunters. You clip your shots, etc.
It's just, man, the whole thing with the getting the hunters to get the actual full effectiveness of the DST, and then combined with the fact that now we know it's not even best for them full game. It feels like if you actually go back and look at the priors that people were suggesting in phase 1, I think you would literally just put hunters at tier 2. Like they would be behind the, like you said, the warriors and the rogues.
Hold on a second.
And I mean, I know some hunters are gonna get mad and they're gonna say, "Hey, look, DST is still good, etc., etc." And it is still a good trinket. Don't get us wrong. We're not saying DST is not a good trinket. It's just that if you guys have alternatives that are really good as well, then it kind of cancels out the argument that a lot of people were using in phase 1, where they were saying, "Oh, hunters have to have this." Even to the point where my guild, we put the hunters equal prio as the rogues and warriors, but because they were so shafted in all of classic, we were like, okay, whatever. They really want this trinket, just let them have the first 3, so they're not gonna complain, and we just let them have the first 3. And if I go back now, I would not have signed on to the let them have the first 3, knowing what we do now with the trinkets. They can wait after the warriors and rogues, honestly. But because the timeline of all of this is the most hilarious part. Is that the timeline? It started with, first they were saying that DST is best, because that was the general thing. It's like, yeah, DST is best forever, guys. And then it came out that their own sim was saying, wait, DST might not be best. Active seem really strong in this sim. And that was when Zyrene was saying, and then Zyrene got flamed for saying that, because then they decided that DST is still best because they didn't want to believe they said the sim settings were wrong, etc. Then they fixed the sim. And when I say fixed, I mean it was later discovered that they rigged their own sim to do improper rotations, inaccurate rotations, to give DST.
No, I'm just kidding.
They literally rigged their own sim to give DST higher values, basically.
I mean, this is like the dark side of shit, real quick, because like this is not one of the, like, people ask me all the times about like, oh, like, should I trust the sims? And I'm like, I don't think you should blindly trust sims. Sims are different. Like, that's the thing, right? Is people think sims are literally just like a robot, like made them. They understand every single aspect about things, and they pump out this number, and it's truth, right? It's gospel. That's not how sims work. Sims are made by humans, right? You might be valuing something incorrectly. You might not. You might be valuing a proc chance incorrectly.
Yeah. Right. Or in the hunter case, you might be purposely changing the rotation to favor certain things.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is people will do things like that. I think sims are usually pretty good, especially if you're trying to check like a very specific thing. But I definitely think that like, people have asked me like, how does a sim change? Like, sims shouldn't change, right? Like, theoretically, if you valued everything correctly from the beginning, sims shouldn't change. But for some reason, sims are changing all the time now. People are getting more and more accurate information as time goes on. Like, for example, I actually was talking to my enhancement shaman buddy, who's like a super good enhancement shaman. And I actually had this conversation in like phase 2 phase 2 before phase 3 with one shaman. And then I had it with actually a really good shaman. And they both said the same thing, like that siphon is bis, right? Like, double siphon is bis. And the sim said double siphon is bis. And I was sitting there and I was like, there's no way in my mind that this double siphon is better than double vengeful, just based on the stats. Like, I was like, if I was playing Enhancement Shaman, I would go double vengeful, because it even has like 60 more stamina between the two weapons anyway, right? It's more hit. You don't hit cap on Shaman. It's more stamina. It's got like 180 armor pen between the two items. Like, I'm sitting there going, there's no way that siphon is better. And then the siphon proc like changed a few weeks ago or some shit for people on sims, and now vengeful is better. So I'm just like, but the majority of raiders can't get 1850. But that's not the issue. Is people were still saying, because these are BIS lists, right? These are lists where people are doing sims and saying how much DPS they are compared to each other, right? And like, vengeful axes were BIS for orc right away because the expertise, right? That was just always BIS. It was slightly better than siphon. And then on alliance sims, the Siphon was slightly better than Vengeful. And then I'm just like, well, Vengeful is actually supposed to be better in my mind. Like if I was speedrunning, 100% I'd do Vengeful. And then the Sims come out and change. And people are like, how do Sims fucking change? It's because the people behind them understand something differently or they get updated data. So in order to trust a Sim, you have to trust the basis on which the Sim is built. You have to trust the values that they've plugged in there. Because I might say attack speed is worth this much and try to get this calculation out of it. And Snow might think it's worth this much, right? Ultimately, there is an objective value for that, but it matters when you put a different rotation on it too, like you were saying. Yeah. Especially with Hunter. Hunter's an interesting one.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially early on because
melee weaving forever, man.
Oh god, yeah. Especially early on. I remember them all suggesting it. See, here's the problem, Hunters, is that you guys have fed us so much misinformation so many times that how can we trust you? Especially like the amount of Hunters that were pushing melee weaving really early on, and then like literally only now are we actually getting into melee weave meta. Because the Hunters were not melee weaving properly, or not really melee weaving until this current like phase where with Black Temple and all these bosses, and the sim back then as well was not very polished because it was very rough back then.
I actually have like a weird like theory about that too. Is that I've actually been talking to a really good melee weaving hunter in my guild who is very consistent with it. Is actually an insane player. And I've been asking him things that are stupid, like how much does he make use of like Wind Fury in his group? How much does he think that having an Executioner version of his weapon would be worth it? Because once you proc Executioner for the melee weapon, I'm pretty sure it applies to your range weapon. So if you get an Executioner proc off like a Raptor Strike or something, you're gonna have Armor Pen for the rest of it, right?
Yeah,
interesting. Your range shots. So I was like, do you melee weave enough to have decent Executioner uptime? I don't know, right? And that's another thing too, because would it be more worth it to just have Mongoose, or is it worth it? Or is it just worth it to have the 35 Agi? Because technically, you can all two-handed weapons are not unique to my knowledge, right? So you can have two of the weapons, except for like Storm Herald and shit. So you could have two Twin Blades, do you think Warcraft logs will ban melee weaving? I heard a rumor. Yeah, there was a rumor going around that they would ban melee weaving because they can't audit the logs for individually and shit like that. I don't think they'll ban it.
Yeah, I don't think they will, but it'd be the only option because they can't like differentiate enough easily, or at least they don't want to. It's too finicky to do it.
Yeah,
that they would just rather like it not be a thing if they have to actually police that. Yeah, I mean that's the interesting thing is that I don't know how much to even trust the Hunter stuff now, but I feel bad for Raramos because he wasn't around in phase 1 is kind of the thing. He wasn't around in the discussion during all that time, so when all the misinformation was being spread by the Hunters, he wasn't involved in that to fix it, and now he is, but now he has to deal with the fact that a lot of people just don't trust the information coming out from Hunters because we've just been lied to too many times, man. We've just been lied to too many times, and now your DSTs are no longer BIS. Where do you think the prior goes for the Nauru trinket?
Oh, Black and Nauru sliver?
Yeah. What do you think? What do you think the prior goes for the Black and Nauru sliver? Because it's BIS for basically everyone that can use it. Yeah. It's just a really good trinket. In my mind, I was almost thinking like at this point, like Hunters, I know it's good for you, but you guys lied, and now you gotta lay in your bed and not get the trinket because you guys just lied to us. We gave you such high priority on that DST.
To be honest, I think this is gonna sound shitty. But I think Rogue. I think Rogue should get it.
Interesting. Why?
I think Rogue should get it because haste is your best stat. Out of all the classes, I think rogues get the most out of haste. 54 haste is a meaningful base stat just to have on something, even though it's a 45-second cooldown and it has good uptime on the AP on it. I think that it's worth it for rogues, especially. So.
Yeah, I think it's the most noticeable on rogues when you get extra haste and it free, like your rotation. Every little bit of help towards the rotation makes it feel comfier and nicer when you have more of that haste coming in and you have more of the procs, and suddenly you're not feeling as stressed trying to hit like rotation marks or like especially sometimes on the opener, when I'm playing around with when I pop my AR. It's really noticeable when I get all the procs on my opener and then I don't get the procs. It's really noticeable the amount of difference in the feel of the rotation. And that's why I started popping AR early, actually, because sometimes when you get the bad RNG, it just you don't get the energy that I quite want to be able to do the rotation I quite want if I don't get enough procs.
It does matter. Like I have like banked on procs before and had it not work out, but then I bank on procs. Sometimes I'm like, please proc, and then I'm just like, oh, I didn't get punished. Like I'll do something stupid, and I see that I have like 3 combo points, and like I have 3 combo points, 40 energy, and AR falls off in 2 seconds. I'm like, I have to find a way to get like 40 more energy to just get this off and not have like a large gap in AR. So yeah, there's sometimes you don't get punished. Sometimes you don't get punished for the greedy combo point usage, but not all the time.
Yeah, I mean, to bring it back to the trinket thing, I think I actually think warriors and rogues first.
Yes,
and then the other classes, in my opinion, for that trinket. Not that it like a lot of people. Honestly, a lot of people don't even care that much about it because it's kind of like end of game. Wrath is coming. Yeah, so like a lot of people don't care.
If warriors and rogues are prio on this, does that mean that hunters should have DST prio still? Because technically they'll use it for long. No, I'm just kidding. They're going to use that in Zerker's Call until they get Black and Nauru sliver, but they're lower prio on Black and Nauru sliver. So hunter propaganda at it again. Yeah. Not that I hate hunters, like or anything like that. I just think that hunters have been unreasonable about like what actually is good for them. I think the meme back in the day was hunter weapon for like every fucking weapon in Classic, and then hunters were bad in Classic, and now they're actually like, oh, by the way, we've been here this whole time. These are the things that are good for us. It's like,
oh man, the other thing that complicates things when you start talking hunter prio is the whole hit thing with like the hit gearing, and they're like, oh well, I can use this, but I can't use this until I get X, Y, and Z.
That's why I think Halberd of Desolation's a freebie, and you should just give it to a hunter, and he'll find a way to use it, right?
Yeah, it gets so messy sometimes talking, and then you're trying to explain to hunters sometimes that like, look, this may be best for you, but you can't use it for ages because of your whatever hit issues or whatever. So we're gonna pry you lower here, and then maybe you take this item instead. And people are like, no, it's on my bish list. I need this, and it just further complicates things with the hunters.
I like Menarch's response, or they can do what other classes do and gem hit. Yeah. Okay, you win for the day, dude. You win for the day.
Menarch is a staunch supporter of the hunter should just gem hit thing. He's been going on about that for a while now. Yeah,
hunter should just gem hit. This is the anti-hunter propaganda.
The opposite propaganda.
No madness, nothing like that for them. Oh man.
But yeah, so. Outside of the hunter news, though, we have a lot of stuff. Unfortunately, both me and Zyrene did not get to do PTR because of... Did you actually ever get to do PTR? Because I messaged Zyrene the day they announced they were taking it down. I was like, did you get to do PTR? Because I didn't get to do PTR.
We're focused on speedrunning BT, because speedrunning BT to us is like Rain is... Like I said, Rain has never been a guild where it's like, we're trying to go for world first. It's like, we're always trying to go for the best time later on in refinement. It just... PTRing and trying out strats one time that we'll never use again or refine just doesn't interest us. So neither me or Zyrene got to do PTR. I mean, I was literally in Singapore, so I only just got back. I've looked at a lot of logs, though. I've looked at a lot of logs because Brutalis is booty blasting people.
Oh yeah. I mean, a lot of them are booty blasting people.
Yeah, God, we're most guilds are running like a prop paladin and 2 ferals. Or something close to that. Well, one of my guilds is just handing me all the healing gear now, and they're like, "You are gonna heal on Brutalis. You're gonna be the backup healer. The prop paladin is the backup healer now instead of one of the tanks. Instead of having to bring somebody in.
I mean, not looking at Brutalis. If you look at like my guildies were looking at the fusion logs and seeing how many times they wiped to Muru and how many times they wiped to twins, and it's like you look at the logs, it's like 30 wipes a piece.
Yeah, those series of bosses is very hard. Halagos is like, once people understand the gimmick, it's very easy. I don't think people would wipe on it frequently. I think Pugs will. I think Sunwell Plateau GDKPs are going to be far off and carried by tanks, and they'll be long. But I think Felmist is very easy. I think Brutalis is very hard. Like Brutalis has a lot of individual responsibility for healers, DPS positioning, tanks as well. And there's like some weird thing too where people were saying that tanks are getting burned without it being like a burn from another melee touching him. Because there's like a mechanic in Brutalis where somebody gets burned, and then if anybody's near them, the burn jumps to that person too. So that's why like one of the things with an all melee composition, one of the reasons that people have been saying like warriors are bad in Sunwell is because there's only X amount of melee spots on Brutalis's booty. So if you are if we're running like 10 melee or 12 melee like we are, there's not enough spots on Brutalis for everybody to get to damage it and not get burned and spread it to other people. So yeah, there's a problem there. But somebody was saying that their tank got burned as the taunt went out. So like he taunted Brutalis turned to him. So it's a fresh tank with no like meteors stacks on him, and he gets burned immediately. And Brutalis hits for 10k. Like if you look at logs, Brutalis is hitting for 7k to 10k, and then when he enrages, he hits for 20k. And he enrages at 6 minutes, 7 minutes. Because his enrage timer is actually very close to a lot of kill times. Brutalis enrage timer. It's a 6 minute enrage, which means you need about 30k DPS to not wipe. You need 30k DPS consistent throughout 5 minutes or 6 minutes to not wipe to him. And you need enough healers to keep your tanks up the entire time without sacrificing too much DPS, right? You don't consider it a very tight DPS check if you're bringing more healers than it is, right? Some people are bringing like 7 healers. Like if you look at logs and stuff like that, and you look at people's kill times, like this one right here, you see they went to 5 minutes and 23 seconds, right? Their kill was Fusion's kill, right? Fusion's kill is 5 minutes 23 seconds. If you're thinking of like an average guild, they're going to be hitting 6 minutes, right? Like I looked at a lot of kills where there's like people were getting extra time because I think like Brutalis was about to enrage. So they had a warrior tank, by the way. Brutalis has like a really low chance to actually resist taunt from what people were saying on PTR. They bopped a warrior tank, and then he proceeded to taunt, mocking blow, challenging shout, just combo it all together in like a row. And then they killed it during that. So it was like they had just enough time to do like a bop rotation or a bop on a warrior. And you could probably do that with multiple warriors, gain yourself like maybe 10 extra seconds, 20 extra seconds. But I think it's going to be a tighter DPS check than people think.
Well, I mean, it also depends on what versions of the bosses, whether we get pre-post nerf bosses or what they're going to do. Because they have said that they're interested in maybe doing both pre and post nerf bosses. Yes. In that they give everyone the pre-nerf at first, and then later in the phase, they take it down a notch and be like, okay, here's the post-nerf version so everyone can beat it.
What they did in original was, like, the only bosses that really, I think, got touched in original was Nauru. And then when Wrath of the Lich King happened, or the patch was happening for Wrath of the Lich King, the pre-patch, the 4.0 or whatever, or sorry, 3.0, that's when they nerfed Sunwell. So Sunwell health values got nerfed. Like Brutalis goes from 10 million HP to 4.5 million. So they basically make him like a buffed Magtheridon in terms of like how much HP he has, just slightly. So it's like they definitely nerfed it at some point, but it was basically when Wrath of the Lich King started. And I assume they're going to do the same. I assume that's what they're going to do, right? Yeah. But I don't know, because they did nerf like, TK and SSC earlier than the phase ending, right?
Yeah, and it seemed to be well received if it was announced ahead of time. So I think hopefully they've learned from what happened there, where they just announced it last minute and everyone was like, hey, maybe a little heads up. So I do hope that if they do choose to go that route again, they at least let people know well ahead of time, like when the switch is going to happen. Then I feel like if people know when the switch is going to happen, then most people aren't really that upset over it.
Yeah, they're not salty about it.
Yeah, it's just only last time they were salty because Blizzard literally did it, like the day before. They were like, hey, by the way, guys, boss is changing tomorrow. See you. But yeah, what do you think about the timing overall of this anyway? Because that's been a big discussion point, is that people have been discussing whether this is too rush, whether it's not too rush, because we know like unofficially, we know that when the raid tier hits PTR, it means it's coming fairly soon to live. Usually within like a month-ish.
Yeah, it's probably 4 weeks, right? It was probably, excuse me. They did a thing where they said the season's ending in like 2 weeks, right? So I assume 2 weeks from then is when Sunwell will be out. So I assume we're going for a 4-week thing here.
Yeah.
I definitely think that I definitely think that it's not too fast. Because if you look at like how long this phase is going to last, so we just got to lockout 13. So we're probably going to like 17 or something like that. So it's about the same as last phase, right? Last phase was 17 weeks too.
Yeah, well, I think they just they just don't count ZA as an actual phase by itself, and then because it is really just an add-on kind of raid in a similar style of ZG, in that the real content is still doing the BT and Hydro stuff. But I'm kind of 2 minds because from PvE perspective, I don't think it's too early, even though like some people might feel a little bit rushed with it coming off the back of ZA. I don't think it's too early from a PvE perspective because I understand the fact that if the longer they delay it, the more like people have this switch in their head where once they just feel like, oh man, we've been doing this for too long, they tune out really fast. And you want to kind of hit people with the new content before that switch flips in their head. So I don't think it's actually too early because people have been doing BT and Hydro for a while now. Although that said, I think it's definitely from a PvP perspective, it's definitely not great in that there was no heads up to let the PvPers know that, hey, your seasons, the longest season TBC is going to be actually the shortest season. It's cut the season down by a lot of expectations. And it's another one of those things where I don't think people would be that upset if they just at least told people that this was a possibility or this is what might be happening, because a lot of PvPers, and it is a very small community, and it's probably why Blizzard doesn't care about them. A lot of PvPers were banking on this longer season, so all their planning, all like their point spending, everything in their head was like, oh, I've got another month, I've got another month and a half or whatever it is before they have to start worrying about stuff, and then suddenly Blizzard just hits them with that, yeah, you got 2 weeks. Have fun. Well, technically 2 weeks and a little bit, but yeah. So I think from that perspective, it kind of sucks for the PvPers because they legit don't have that heads up notice. And I know a lot of people that are very salty because they spent points that if they had known, they wouldn't have spent the points, basically. They would have at least said, because they know like the gear is going to cost half, they're going to get tokens for free gear, etc., etc. So there's some people who are kind of upset about that, and I understand it, but at the same time, it's kind of been Blizzard's MO in that they've shown that they really put PvP as like secondary to the PvE. PvE is just like the main thing, and then PvP is just kind of tacked on. And if they can do things to help the PvP system, like in Raft, they're talking about removing the teams. They do, but they don't base their decisions around PvP. Or it's not really the main thing.
I understand that. Menarch actually mentioned something that I wanted to bring up, which was, do you know if we're getting season 3 for tier 6 tokens? Yeah, you are. There's a vendor on the Isle of Quell de Los, I think, that does that for you. I don't remember if they're one that needs to be unlocked from dailies or something like that, but there's definitely a place where you can change T6 tokens into season 3 gear. So if you are a loot master and you've ever deleted any of the tokens for your class, you should just go to item restore and restore them now and then keep them in your bank. So you can, because people are now going to start going after the PvP stuff, which means that value of pieces are going to go up in GDKP slightly, but only for PvPers who are like playing catch up. But also GDKPs in Sunwell are going to be very interesting because PvPers want 4-piece, right? Yeah. Almost all classes in PvP want to wear 4 pieces of tier and 4 pieces of their PvP set. And you're typically wearing the 4 pieces of tier that are like shoulders and then belt, bracers, boots. And PvPers are going to want those. But getting to like belt, bracers, boots for GDKP is not always going to be possible. I believe that's only the first 3 bosses though, right? So yeah, the first 3 bosses of Sunwell are the ones that people are going to want to kill for GDKPs for those pieces, right? And bring PvPers. So Caligos and Felmus should not be hard. But the problem is that Brutalis is after Caligos. So you have to kill Brutalis to get the Felmist.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be interesting because there are some GDKPs that are very good, like the really good GDKPs. Sometimes I see them outperform some guilds.
Oh yeah, there's some GDKPs that are funny. Like there's some GDKPs that are speed running and they have like hour 7-minute kills. They're so funny.
Yeah, and it's usually because they're outs of people who are a lot more hardcore, and everyone just sends the outs into the GDKP, and everyone knows what's going on. So like they're just able to perform. It's kind of like how back in the day Progress Raid 3 was like the casual raid, but then I look at our times and be like, wait, we're like faster than a lot of guilds that are actually trying, just because you literally have outs of people who are going 10 times faster in the main raid.
I mean, that's the thing too, right? It's like when I play in Who Raid 2, I think has a better time than Who Raid 1. I'm just like, yeah, it's because you have people in those raids who are like really trying.
Irene. This is your chance to beat your... Was it a 9-hour? How long did you do a GDKP for?
I don't want to talk
about that one time.
That was awful. That was awful.
You can beat the rain record. You can overcome the raid record, and you could do a 15-hour GDKP on launch day.
Please no.
Think about how much gold you make though, because if I recall right, didn't you make like 1,000 gold an hour or something in that 50 billion hour GDKP?
That's because I was also an admin for it. Once you're no longer an admin for the GDKP, the amount of value you get out of that is much lower. Like an admin makes like 3 times as much as a regular player, right? Or like 3.5 times as much. So if somebody made like 3K, we made 10, right? And then that's basically how it went every time. So like being an admin in a GDKP and taking a decent cut is just so much better than being in the GDKP by itself.
Yeah. But I did have fun. It was fun though, because people came to my stream and let me know that, oh, do you know Irene's been doing a GDKP for like...
Yeah, they keep coming over and they're like, Snow says hi. And then they were like, Snow's watching your GDKP. Yeah. I remember the time you were watching me wipe or something like that.
Oh, yeah, that was fun. Yeah, because we had a podcast scheduled, but like Irene wiped for like 2 hours beyond the scheduled time.
It was bad. It was bad, dude.
Yeah.
Well, beyond the scheduled time, yeah, it was like 2 hours beyond, which meant we were wiping for like 3.5 on Vaj.
yeah, because he was meant to be done like ages ago.
It was so bad. We had to have a guy. We had to have North come in and give us a speech on how we're gonna beat that boss. Oh God.
Talking about the whole season 3 stuff as well, it's interesting because there's implications on the season now that everyone's been just surprised, season's ending in 2 weeks, because there hasn't been that inflation on NA yet. NA has not had a crazy gladiator inflation yet, because usually that happens later on NA than EU. EU already has the 3K plus teams. Not as many as they would have if it was later, but NA actually hasn't experienced the crazy inflation that much yet. So I'm actually curious to see what happens with the inflation. Whether NA is going to see that inflation, or is it going to be the first season since since the start where we actually see a glad rating that's more closer to what was expected? Because I think a lot of arena players were kind of caught off guard, and honestly at this stage a lot of arena players are playing RAF as well. I know a lot of them are prepping for RAF and playing on private servers right now.
Yeah, a lot of people have gone to private servers, and also most recently with the Wrath of the Lich King announcement of there's not necessarily going to be race changes.
Oh yeah. No race changes. Yeah.
Some people are focusing on their humans now. So some people are like, oh, it's time to go play my human rogue for a bit, So I see a lot more of the Horde PvPers playing on their alliance tunes recently.
Yeah,
they're very undergeared alliance tunes.
I'm actually really curious to see what happens with the end of the season, because the ladder looks very different than I thought it would. But a lot of that is because people don't really push until the end of the season a lot of the times, and I feel like there's been a lot of people actually that have quit in between that they're not glad but they're not bad either bracket, that I could call that like the 2K to up to glad level, where they're not quite glad but they're in between. And I feel there's been a lot of people, because I know, because a lot of my partners, my characters usually sit in that MMR rating somewhere. A lot of the people that I would sometimes just play with for fun, they're gone now, or they've stopped PvPing, or they just lost interest. And I feel like a lot of that is just because they kind of hit that arena wall where they know what it takes to get to the next level of glad, but because of how janky it is in TBC to actually find a reliable partner, to improve, to find like good queues, and the amount of work it takes to jump that gap, a lot of them have actually quit, I feel.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of those guys in that kind of middle bracket that have quit. But I am really curious to see how much inflation we get. Because right now Glad's only like 2.5? I think it's just under 2.5k on NA, which would be like 400 lower than people were predicting for this season. So the question is, how much inflation can we see in 2 weeks?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure, because 2 weeks, a lot of people will start playing. Like, that's the thing, right? Is people are going to play for people are going to play and make teams just so they can get the points that are then half off shit, right?
Yeah.
I definitely don't know what I'm going to do. I think the inflation will go up for sure. I think people are going to start pushing those. Well, obviously, it's the time to push, and more people are on, so queues will be shorter. That's always one of the biggest pain points when you're at the top, is just you have to queue at certain times.
Yeah.
Like, you can't just queue randomly throughout the day. And especially if you're doing it on like a 5s team or a 3s team, because you don't just need one other person. You got to line up your schedules. So it's pretty bad. But I definitely think the inflation will happen. I know that like next phase, there's even some items that, like, this is one of the things too. Like, I play Paladin, I play Prop Paladin. I know that my BIS weapon is from PvP next phase. So it's like, I have to gear a Prop Paladin to play potentially Holy or Ret in Arena for next phase. And I'm just like, this is not something I want to do, especially because I play 3 of them. So
I think it's time to hit up the old Chanimal. It's the Chanimal accepts gold.
Do you think Chan can boost a Pally, dude? That would be like...
Well, he only has to get you to what, like 1850 though, right?
I actually wonder if Chan could boost an undergeared Holy Paladin. It was 1850.
I would want to watch that stream. I would love to watch that stream.
Chan could boost a broom. Rogue Shockaden. Okay, it's actually true. I would play Shockaden at that point, and that would probably work. But Rogue Ret, dude, we could do Ret Rogue. We could do the Scooby Doo comp, the Ret Rogue.
Yeah.
Well, that's actually good in Wrath. So
yeah, I mean, I've run into a couple of them. It's weird. It's like this weird niche comp, and you don't see many of them, and most of them are horrible. But every now and then you run into like a Ret Rogue. And at an MMR that they do not belong there, they should not be there. But then you run into them and they kind of shock and awe you, because by the time you realize what's going on, they kind of just run you down.
Over. Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen like 2 or 3 times in a row, but the first time you're always just caught off guard.
But yeah, PvP it's interesting. I'm curious to see what's going to happen there with season 4 and such. But I would assume everything is just going to go the way it's always gone. PvP is just, unfortunately, it's just not a very big amount of people that do it.
Well, I think that PvP I think PvP is definitely an afterthought in TBC, right? Like, there's no world PvP. It's all arenas. They definitely had to waited a long time to change honor gain. And so it like a lot of people who wanted to interact with the system aren't going to do it anyway now.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's
just
the
honor
honor
stuff.
They just you lost them. If it was available at the beginning, more people would have just been like gathering PvE gear to PvP, getting tokens and shit like that. Like they would have been doing that right away. So I think that we're in a place where hopefully going into Wrath, it's more of a centerpiece, because I know that in Wrath of the Lich King, things like Winter Grasp, they haven't touched on how they're going to do Winter Grasp, because I don't think they know how they're going to do Winter Grasp. I don't think Winter Grasp is going to be like, I hope to be proven wrong in some way, shape, or form, but I don't think Winter Grasp is going to be a contest at all on things like Benediction or Fairlina. I just think they're just going to say, yeah, I mean, it's an unbalanced server. What are you going to do? Right. This was not designed around servers that had like
30k people, one faction.
30K people and no other
Yeah.
like one faction on it, like you said. There's not a balance around that, was not made around that, and they'd have to update the game or how it works for that. Like have cross realm winter grasps, right? Or merge servers so that like Fairlina plays against Benediction, right? Stuff like that. Like I don't think they're going to touch it. I don't know if they're going to. I don't think they're going to. I would want them to, though.
I feel like it's one of those things. It'd be on and we'll talk more about this later. But it's one of those things where if they had the time, I feel they would try to do stuff with it. But I feel they're gonna hit a point where they're like, "Oh, we don't have enough time to fix this. So this is just you're gonna get the scuffed version that we don't know how to fix." As is what I predict from listening to all the interviews with Brian. Is it Birmingham? Is his last name? Yeah, listening to all the interviews, it just sounds like they have their schedule and then they just try to fit as much as they can into that schedule. But things like PvP things tend to be down the line in that schedule, and they kind of just don't have the time to work on that. Even if they want to work on it, they didn't really have the time to dedicate to those things. Before we go into full Wrath of the Lich King talk, we have a sponsor today, guys.
We do have a sponsor.
And we have that beautiful Manscaped sponsorship. So, guys, this prepared podcast is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped's Performance Package is the ultimate men's hygiene bundle. Join over 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code PREPARED at manscaped.com. The Performance Package 4.0 by Manscaped has arrived. Inside this package, you find your Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, your Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer, Crop Preserver ball deodorant, Crop Revival toner, Performance boxer briefs, and a travel bag to hold your goodies. So first off, the Lawnmower 4.0. This trimmer is the future of grooming, and dare I say the greatest ball trimmer ever. The 4th generation trimmer features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to the advanced skin-safe technology. The Lawnmower 4.0 is waterproof and also has an LED spotlight for a more precise shave. And because this trimmer is waterproof, you can also get your business done and just rinse it off for super fast cleaning after. No mess, no fuss. The Performance Package 4.0 also includes the Weed Whacker nose and ear hair trimmer. So this is also waterproof and provides proprietary skin-safe technology, which helps reduce nicks, snags, and tugs on those delicate nose holes. I can attest, I actually used this product right before the podcast, and it is miles ahead of the tiny little grooming scissors I had before. I actually really like it. The ball Crop Preserver ball deodorant and Crop Revival ball toner will change the way you approach your hygiene routine. Trust me, fellas, when I say this, but your balls will thank you. And Manscaped even threw in 2 free gifts in their Performance Pack 4.0, the boxes and the Shed travel bag. So bring your comfort and boxes to another level. It's time to take care of yourself, so go to manscaped.com and get 20% off and free shipping with the coupon code PREPARED. So yeah, that was the sponsor, guys. Zyrene, have you been using your Manscaped kit?
So, I decided for one last time before I never use them again, just to use a regular razor and nose hair trimmer.
Okay.
Just to remember what it was like one last time. So no, I have not used it because I knew that you were going to use it and you were going to give your review. And I feel like in like a week or two, I'll use mine and then I'll be able to give a review. So I didn't want us to give it at the same time. I also wanted to have one last hurrah and see and basically have, something. I wanted a comparison point. I wanted a data point.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So I could be like, wow, this is so much better than fucking last time. Holy shit.
Dude,
so
it is so much better. It was legit so much better. Because I got it, and in the past I was really scared about cutting myself. When you're down there, there's a lot of stuff going down there, guys. When you've got a razor and such, it's everyone's cut and nicked themselves before. And as long as you're using the tool correctly, it's actually a lot harder to nick yourself, especially with the ceramic blades and stuff. You can mess around that as long as you're doing the stuff right. It's actually really hard to nick yourself, and it's such an easier experience when I'm not just scared that I'm gonna cut myself the entire time. It's actually so nice. I love it. my wife's actually really happy as well because uh not just because of the ball shaving stuff.
No.
Not just because of the ball shaving stuff, but because she's always trying to get me to trim my nose hairs, but I hate using like the little like nose hair trimmers because she's one of those OCD types that sees like if she sees a hair sticking out, she's like, I need to get rid of that. We can't have that. She'll see that. So she'll literally like sit me there like, you don't move. I'm gonna go get the razors. We're gonna get rid of that hair sticking out right now.
Yeah, you have a wife though? Unsubbed, unfollowed. Sorry, man.
And I oh man, it's actually really nice. I actually use that nose hair trimmer like twice as much as the ball hair things because you don't have to shave your ball hairs that much, guys. From time to time, you just do a little maintenance. But actually, like the nose hair trimmer, just like a little zappity zap is actually really nice. And like I was saying to Irene, it's actually something that I'm so happy I have now. I wouldn't have thought to buy it for myself because like I'd seen the ads, but I just never really considered it. It just wasn't something that was really in my mind. But now that I have it, it's something that I can't go back. I really can't go back now.
I'm excited to use it because I, obviously just, did another round, but without it. And so I know what it's like and how there's uncomfortable situations because, I wasn't really taking care of myself much before that. But the ball deodorant stuff, that stuff smells fucking good.
Oh yeah, it smells like a barber shop. That's what I was thinking of when I smelled it.
It smells clean. It smells fucking clean.
Yeah,
that's the thing that I like about it.
It's that same smell when I get that fresh cut at a barber and he puts on the aftershave stuff. It smells like the barber. I mean, let's talk Raf. So let me see where we are. So Raf was announced. Let me pull up the old page. By the way, guys, if you haven't, you have to opt in for beta. I don't know if you guys know, but there's an actual opt-in. So you go to the Raf page on Amazon and not Amazon. You go to the Raf page on Blizzard and you actually have to opt in for the beta if you're not opt-in. But I think the biggest thing was that it's coming in 2022, which was what a lot of people predicted. And I assume after PTR came up, everyone kind of had an idea that they were kind of rushing into that Raf phase as well. But I'm curious to see, Zyrene, what do you actually think about the timing of this? In that it does seem that they're going to be trying to push this out ASAP.
I mean, it says 2022, so it's sometime this year.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's going to be in Q4. I think that they're going to do 4 weeks until Sunwell, and that'll be end of May. Then I think they're going to do 16, 17 weeks of Sunwell. So that'll be 4 months later. That'll be September-ish, August, September. And I think they're going to give warning and they'll do pre-patch. And then I think that's going to be October or November, right?
Yeah. Well, they have said, okay, so we do know from the Birmingham interview on the Countdown to Classic podcast, which is a really good podcast. I really do like enjoying the content, and he did say that the pre-patch would be at least 2 weeks long, no more than 6 is the initial thoughts. So between 2 to 6. Birmingham? Yeah.
And you said he said this where?
On the Countdown to Classic podcast interview that was I think in the last week. Yeah. So he said,
have I seen that?
I'm not sure. You probably haven't because it's in the last week that they just did this interview, and it was a quick 30-minute interview. He's done a bunch of interviews.
Are these the guys who came on one time?
Yeah, they came on the podcast. So these are the same guys that that was that podcast that they scheduled to come on with us. So we actually did a podcast with them in the past, or at least I did. Zyrene was away that day, unfortunately.
Dude, one thing that I definitely want to talk about this drama that's popping up is Brian Birmingham himself. I can give you a link to the tweet here. I know a lot of people are actually upset about this.
Okay, so what are they asking? Any plans for a more in-depth interview about changes you all are looking for at Rafa Lich King? And then he replies, we're open to the idea, but we aren't currently aware of anything problematic like Seal of the Blood or drums were. Not necessarily a suggestion. I know there's a lot of talk in the PvP community about rerolling a lines for human ratio. So he replies, I mean, maybe that's the answer. If the reason everyone is mad about no race change is that the human racial is too powerful, maybe that's the real problem. Not an announcement, of course, but it's worth thinking about. Ooh. So he's saying that the human racial is too strong potentially, and they're gonna look at it as a potential thing. Oh, yeah, I don't know how I feel about that.
I don't know.
Yeah, I can see why a lot of people are not happy about that because I mean there's a lot of people that are literally going human for all of this stuff. And like a lot of Wrath is kind of the PvP scene is built on the fact that humans are overpowered or the way people think about it. In the same way that in PvE people want to experience certain things, I feel there's probably a lot of people that want to experience the era where everyone was human. That does bring about the question of at what point should they be like, okay, well, you got to experience it. Let's change it to be more balanced or whatever. But at the same time, they've never really touched that much in PvP balancing. So to go to that extent, would be a change, would be a departure to actually start doing race faction balance type stuff.
Yeah, a lot of people are upset about this because they're just like, one, you can just even look at the comments and replies to this. Like, one, it's like people want to race change, not just because they want to go Horde or Alliance, right? It's because they want to, they may have rolled a dwarf when Stoneform removed blind or when Stoneform gave immunity. Because apparently in Wrath of the Lich King, Stoneform doesn't give you 8 seconds of immunity to bleeds and shit. Like as soon as you use it, you pop it and then you get the armor and stuff, but you don't have the like 8-second duration of immunity. Where Night Elves get like Shadow Meld gets improved, and then they have something that makes people miss them. So it's like people think that there's like different reasons that they would change to different classes or out of different races. Sorry, but human is definitely strong, right? Yeah. Human is definitely strong.
Yeah, human's crazy strong, at least for the PvP side of things. Human's super strong because it's basically a free trinket. But yeah, that is interesting because they did not talk about this in any of the interviews up until now. That was not in the interview. I watched the interview, so yeah, they did not talk about a human because I don't think people ever thought that was on the table, right? It'd be a departure from them to ever do this stuff.
Yeah, if they started changing things like this, I don't know what's going to happen, but I think that so here's what I think Blizzard is presented with a problem where in original WoW, Alliance was better for PvE and Horde was like more fun in PvP, right? And slightly better in some cases. In TBC, it's kind of mixed depending, but mostly Horde, and then like Perception is strong too, obviously.
Yeah.
And then in Wrath, it's just human racial is pretty much the best racial for every single version of that. Just because it allows you flexibility and trinkets get stronger as the game goes on. Using an extra armor pen trinket, using like another active trinket in PvP can be very good. PvE though, I believe that Horde is better than Alliance in PvE only slightly. But we're seeing right now that Horde is better in PvE than Alliance in TBC, but it doesn't make enough of a difference in speedrunning. Because theoretically, Horde should do more damage with their racials, right? The Troll racial of speed, the Orc racial of having basically an extra active trinket and extra pet damage. Like theoretically, it should be better. And then there is like Orc expertise, right? Human expertise for warriors or whatever. I don't know if that's going to equalize the amount of damage you get from like an Orc active and shit like that. So theoretically, Alliance should be better or should be worse right now than Horde. But when it ends up being like parses and shit, it actually doesn't end up mattering enough. So the fact that PvE Horde is better now, and then even Wrath of the Lich King, they're better than Alliance. I don't think PvE usually influences people's races aside from like expertise or anything like that. Yeah. Usually people pick a race because it's good at both or it's okay at both, or that's just purely PvP. That's how I think about it. Otherwise, there'd be like, there wouldn't be as many human paladins, and there'd be a lot more like blood elf ret paladins, like a lot more, because they're so much better at PvP. than a human.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised that they haven't said anything about faction changes, or rather, they've said that they have no plans at this time. So this is on the official RAF site. They say we have no plans at this time to offer new services, but keep an eye on it. Because to my knowledge, faction changes weren't in on launch, but they were released. I had a look before the podcast.
Later,
September 2009. So it was during RAF. It's just that
a year later.
It was like a year into RAF. So
is that right? Was it a year later?
It was
RAF came out 2008, right?
2008, I believe. And then I think 2010 was Cataclysm.
Yeah.
So
yeah, they released it in 2009 for the change.
Yeah. Huh. So it's interesting that they're not saying that they're gonna put it in right away, because I mean, the fascinating thing is it would make them a lot of money to put it in at the start.
Just correct me if I'm wrong. Did they introduce faction and race changes at the same time? But I remember race change was something you could do within your own faction, and then they released faction change. So you could change from you could change from like a human to a dwarf, but you couldn't go dwarf to blood elf.
Oh, okay. So it says race change was end of October 2009. So
when was faction change?
Wait, and it says faction change was September?
Was before.
Yeah. If Google's right, the Google might be wrong, this initial Google, but it's telling me start of September was faction change, and then end of October was race change.
Interesting. But a faction change would technically be a race change too. That's so interesting. So did they release race change later and said you could just change your race if there was something you wanted?
But yeah, it's fascinating that they haven't, because they're both things that go in the faction change is something that's in RAF, but they just decided they don't want to. Honestly, I feel like it might. I actually wonder if it's a time thing. If it's like they're so pressed to get the rest of RAF working that it's something they want to add, but they're worried that if they announce it now, they won't be able to have it there for launch because they're so busy fixing the rest of RAF to work for launch.
This might be, you think this is one of those things where it's like they want to keep expectations low so that they can surpass them?
In a way, I guess. I think it's in a, because I feel like I get the feeling when I watch the interviews with Brian Birmingham and such is that the devs definitely want to improve WoW, but every time they ask the question of like, what is the development schedule like, or like, why don't we get more heads up notice of things? The answer is always that they go according to the schedule, and sometimes they're just stuck by the amount of work they can get done within a set period of time. So it feels to me like this is probably one of the features that's on their radar, but it's not an immediate thing that they want to have people like worried about having right away, because they don't know that they can implement it in time if they wanted to. But the other side of me thinks like it's really weird that it's not more prioritized from a money perspective from Blizzard, because it would make them a lot of money, and the only reason why I can think of if they're not implementing it at launch is that they want people to have that same old thing where they want everyone to have the classic experience before they kind of flip the switch and be like, oh, this is the classic plus experience now. But in this case, I feel like, are there really that many people that are against faction change on launch? I'm actually curious, like how many people are actually against faction changes on launch, being that it is a thing that comes in RAF?
I mean, I think people think it's just gonna be all good, right? Like, yeah. I think people are going to be.
I don't really see the negative.
I don't see the negative of it, but there might be something where it's just like Horde just becomes a much smaller faction. But I don't know, right? Like everybody thought people were going to go Horde for TBC completely, but that doesn't seem to be true at all, right?
Yeah.
Even with Blood Elves, because I know retail has been fucking like they've been real sad about their alliance population for the longest time. Now it's like 47-53% alliance to Horde overall in the world, or without counting China.
Here's the thing that chat's brought up, which is a good point, is that it's fine as long as they announce it way ahead of time. See, like the closer we get to RAF, the more they're in this window where they need to give people a heads up, because otherwise they're gonna start leveling the humans and such, and it would be it would feel really bad if you put all that work into leveling a human and they're like, surprise, faction changes. You didn't have to spend the last like 2 months of your time doing that at all. Right? So it feels like if they're gonna do it, they should really get on and telling people, no, we're definitely not gonna do this, or yes, we are gonna do this, so that people can make at least a decision and not get stuck at the halfway mark where they are leveling that human and then it gets released and they feel bad. Yeah, or pay for a boost, as someone says. Yeah. So for people that don't know, boosts are in. That there are boosts in Wrath. Level 70 boosts, as honestly as most people expected. It's a controversial topic for some, but I think it was expected that there was going to be a 70 boost. The more controversial thing was the no dungeon finder, which I'm actually curious to see what your take on this is, Zareen, because they said basically that they don't want to do dungeon finder, mostly as a result of what people have been saying in Classic, where dungeon finder takes away from people's feeling of community and such, and that you're porting right to the dungeon. So what are your thoughts, Zareen, on the fact that they're actually changing Wrath in this way? And it's actually one of the major things you're changing is that there's not going to be a dungeon finder in Wrath.
I want to see what it feels like, right? Like a lot of people. So here's the thing, right? I would hate to be Blizzard right now because so many people in retail have just been like, the game died when Looking for Dungeon came out and Looking for Raid came out. They were like, the game just got shittier and shittier after that. It was just really bad. But now when they say, oh, no Looking for Dungeon, everybody's mad. So it's just like when people are mad, that's when they seem to speak up about something. So people are mad in retail about, oh, Dungeon Finder was bad. Now it's like, oh, hey, now it's Dungeon Finder not in the game. That's fine. This might be one of those things where it's people think that part of Dungeon Finder was bad and that Blizzard is taking a hammer to a scalpel solution, right? Where it's like, why don't you just make it so that it doesn't auto teleport you to the dungeon, right? Mm-hmm. Why didn't you just make it so it does this, right? Why don't you make it so it some people are saying like doesn't do cross realm and like does your like just your server. I don't know how well that'll work. The idea is that you build a reputation for yourself on your server. What I think they're trying to do is preserve the ideas of server reputation for as long as possible before they have to like, because the game is large enough now that you don't have to do shards or anything like that between servers, right? There's enough people on like Fairlina, Benediction, and other things too, right? That's what I think is if they did Dungeon Finder and tied it to servers, I think that would be fine, right? So I think that's what they're trying to avoid is cross server stuff, because that's the thing that people had a big issue with was looking for group bulletin board and having server wide shit is fine, because if somebody ninja loots something, then it hurts their reputation. It goes on to like the server Discord, things like that. People will like screenshot it. People won't want to like group with that person, etc. But if you do it cross server, people would ninja loot stuff back in the day and nothing would ever happen, right? Like it would just be like, don't have to see that guy ever again.
Yeah.
So I think Asmund talked about it at one point where he was like, he had a reputation for ninja looting, and there was somebody there were like top PvEers who would like take him to a dungeon and be like, do you need this item? He'd be like, nope. And they'd be like, do you need 2,000 gold? And he'd be like, I'll ninja it for you. So it was a story he told one time where he was like, yeah, he used to ninja stuff for people and had a reputation for ninjaing, that like good players would group with him and be like, do what you're going to do and I'll give you 2,000 gold. Right. So he would ninja for other people.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this was the thing back in the day. To like side topic a little bit, I know a guy in EverQuest who used to go around selling his services for the exact same thing, because in EverQuest, whoever gets kill credit for a mob is whoever does the most damage to that mob. Mm-hmm. And particularly classes, certain classes had an ability. Wizards have the ability to dump all their mana and do like a nuke. So he just happened to be that class with that ability, and he would offer his services. He'd be like, yeah, you give me this amount of gold, I'll drop group and steal this and then give you the item. And then he would literally go in groups and doing that. So yeah, but on the topic of the Dungeon Finder, I feel like a big issue is that if they're not gonna do Dungeon Finder, and I understand why they don't want to lose that, I feel like they need to implement something in its place to make the experience better at the least still. Because right now, people are still relying on bulletin board. No one really uses the group system thing add-on. Everyone's still using bulletin board, which is an add-on that people download that kind of just tracks looking for group channel and classifies it nicely for you. And it's better, and it works better than Blizzard's current implementation, or it's nicer to use, and that's why no one uses Blizzard's looking for group system right now in TBC. So I feel like if they take away Dungeon Finder, I really hope that they implement something in its place that at least like doesn't rely on people using a scuffed bulletin board add-on that sometimes lags your PC and you gotta like restart your client and turn it off and such. I don't think the solution to no Dungeon Finder should be people need making their own add-ons to replace some functionality of it. I think that should be built into the game. I don't think we should be relying on a third-party add-on for that system. Because especially when we're getting into these servers with 20, 30k people, looking for group channel is not readable unless you have those add-ons. You have to have the add-on. So it just doesn't make sense if you're going to take it away and then make people rely on a third-party add-on even more in order to get groups. I think it's the other side,
I think like people's biggest beef with these things is one, the reputation server thing. Two, like the reason people don't like looking for a dungeon is like the reputation thing. And the second thing is not having to go to the dungeon is one of the things that people who like to interact with the world feel that they're going to miss out on. I don't think so personally on my end, because I'm just like getting to the dungeon is always just like two people get there, the other people summon people. I mean, there's no PvP by stones anymore on my servers. They're just, obviously people went to one side or the other and different servers and shit. But also there isn't really any like camaraderie around those stones. So it's like whoever gets there just summons. You don't really have to interact with the world at all. There's no world PvP. So those things are already gone. I don't think that this is going to solve those problems and make people like show up to those stones and stuff. Maybe on servers.
I mean, people are already flying, right? So it's like
yeah. So I'm just not sure. But here's the thing too, is to some degree, I guess they are right, because I played Wrath of the Lich King and I don't think I could tell you where every dungeon is. I don't even think I could tell you where 2 dungeons are, aside from the one that's inside Dalaran. that's the one I know. I'm like, I don't think I know where Nax is, obviously, and Ulduar, but I don't know where like dungeons are. Yeah, I have no fucking clue when I think about it.
It's actually interesting that they're being proactive about it, because I feel like it shows that at least the devs do want to try to improve it.
Yeah.
I just wonder whether it's again one of those things where it's going to be the right solution or not.
Yeah, I don't know. I think what they're trying to do, like I honestly think this is something that they should do, is they should release the game without Dungeon Finder like this, and then maybe add it. Like maybe add a version of it where it's like it's not cross realm, unless it ends up being like people are like leaving the game because they don't have enough people to party with or something, right? I think they should do something like that. I think if they really think this might be something that is one of the first big problems with WoW that ended up in retail, then I think they should do this change, and that they should test run it and see.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, can you see? The problem although is that, man, sometimes it takes a long time to address things. They could be like, that test went interesting. We'll fix it. We'll see you in 6 months with the fix for you guys.
Yeah.
And then it literally takes them 6 months to actually like fix the problem they started. The last thing, I think the thing that people are scared of is another whole drums thing, right? Where they try to fix something, they make it worse, and then they're like, "Oh, my bad, we made it worse. We'll fix this." And then the fix doesn't really fix it, and we're just stuck with like a worse implementation. Or they acknowledge that it's a mistake, but now they don't have the time to go back and fix it. Is what a lot of people don't want to happen, and they're scared of. I mean, that's why people are so scared of changes in Classic on the whole, is that people just don't trust Blizzard, and given the track record, they've kind of been hit and miss on a lot of the changes in the past. Yeah, they have said that there's not going to be era realms though, which I think is an interesting side effect of. So basically, they're basically saying that Burning Crusade is going to go into Wrath. They're not going to try to redo the classic thing where they're like, okay, you can
100%.
stay in Burning Crusade, guys.
No fucking way.
Because they learned their lesson. No one, like, those servers become ghost towns. And as much as some people say they want to stay on the servers, people don't because everyone just ends up leaving.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Like, it's the Season of Mastery stuff all over again. And like I said, I don't think they should, I don't think you should cannibalize your own audience ever. I think they have a big problem with cannibalizing their audience, and like now you have them across like 3 games. So like, why would you do that? Having having them be across like Season of Mastery, TBC, and then also like current retail just seems like if you added TBC to that and then Wrath, you're just there are 4 versions of WoW people can play. 3 is already enough, right? And I think Season of Mastery at some point will just get completely like shut down potentially, but we'll see. Because I think people don't want to play the same thing over and over again. Also, I don't know if you know, but Season of Mastery just announced like they're doing AQ. I think it starts today.
Oh, really? I didn't even know AQ was coming out. No, I had no idea.
Yeah, I think AQ starts today. They said that Scarab Lord is double reputation, so it's halftime for Scarab Lord. The amount of resources you need to open the gates is halved, and Cthulhu is pre-nerf. So they're implying that they're giving you the monster state of Cthulhu in Season of Mastery, which sounds interesting to me.
I had no idea because I actually have a friend who was really into Season of Mastery, but that's also because he's one of the rare few that quit raiding in Classic and just kept like never raided. So for him, raiding is a completely new experience. So he's one of like that rare few who's like actually hyped. He actually enjoys like raiding, logging in every week for Season of Mastery raids. But their servers are not looking healthy. They're not looking healthy. The populations have been dropping. I've been watching the Ironforge things, and the servers have peaked, and the population's been dropping every week.
What interesting question. Should you have at the end of at the announcement, at the pre-patch of Wrath of the Lich King, because Season of Mastery and shit like that. The Season of Mastery timeline will probably have AQ for a few months, and then we'll have Nax Ramus for a few months. The timeline may line up where Season of Mastery ends at the time that Wrath of the Lich King's coming out, and maybe they say Season of Mastery is not a good idea. It wasn't like it was good at the start with like the hardcore shit, but maybe they go, okay, let's give you an option to transfer your character to TBC before Wrath comes out. So maybe their Psalm characters can come over and fill all the dungeons that are going to have Death Knights in them. So during pre-patch,
Oh, that'd be interesting. Because initially they said that they wouldn't do that, but
yeah, I don't know.
But I mean, Season of Mastery hasn't really taken off, so I feel like it wouldn't hurt for them to do that. But I just don't know what
Season of Mastery if they had any intention of keeping it up.
It would hurt Season of Mastery, but I feel like they probably don't have a long-term intention there, since it's not doing too well by itself anyway.
But I'd be willing to gamble that everybody who plays Season of Mastery is going to fucking leave it when Wrath of the Lich King comes out. Like, if you're playing Season of Mastery, it's Wrath of the Lich King waiting room, which is basically what TBC is now, or going to be, right? I think the people who play Classic WoW will play will play Wrath of the Lich King. Like, even if TBC isn't their cup of tea and they liked Classic better, they will play Wrath of the Lich King. Almost all of them. I'm almost certain on that.
Yeah.
It's probably very close to that.
Well, I mean, looking at the data from Ironforge right now,
7,000 people.
Yeah, 7.5 thousand people in all of Season of Mastery are raiding and logging.
Yeah,
and it's going down because I know Dreadnought was at 3,000 or more at some point, and now they are not. It's been going down. They peaked at 3.9, and it's just been every week, just like kind of like a gradual decline.
Yeah.
So yeah, Season of Mastery not going well.
People are tweeting the Season of Mastery's bugged right now. There's no NPCs on Dreadnought. Is what I heard. Heard there's a bug after the patch or something where there's literally no NPCs in any city right now. When you look at the numbers, it's like, what is it? What are the TBC numbers right now for?
Oh, for like one popular server? Was it like?
No. There's 331,000 people who raid between EU and NA and Russia and all that, there's 1/3 people, right? And in Season of Mastery, there's 7,000. There's 7,500 people. There's 2.3% of people who, comparatively population-wise, like 2% of the people who are between Season of Mastery and TBC are in Season of Mastery. Yeah. So it's like it's actually insane. But I'm willing to bet that this gets cut even more when Wrath Lich King comes out. And I think that those 7,000 people are probably almost all of them will try Wrath of the Lich King, because I believe it's counted in their subscription anyway. So
yeah, it is part of the subscription. So I mean, like, speaking of all the changes though, at least they I don't know anyone that's saying the PvP change is bad though. That's just a universally good thing. So they've said, for people that don't know, they've said that teams, they're getting rid of teams.
Yeah.
And they're basically going to allow what everyone's wanted, which is an arena system with no teams. And it's like your personal rating is going to be what they're using. So it gets rid of the problem where in the past, like, or right now, people just get locked into teams. And it becomes even more evident right now as we're approaching the end of the season, where you're like, oh, I want to play with my friend. I can't, because he's locked to his team. And now with the season ending, he can't play with me because he doesn't want to risk his title, or he's going to make sure he hits his games played and such. It just makes it, especially with such a small little PvP population, it makes it very hard to play with other people, very unfriendly to play with other people. And now, at least, in Wrath, no teams. I think that's just generally a good change. There's not a single person I know that's actually against that, really. It's just a very good change to promote, because at this stage, like Zyrene was saying, in TBC, PvP is definitely a secondary thing on your mind, and they have that chance, at least in Wrath, to boost it up as much as they can to make it incentivized, because they don't want what happened in TBC to happen in Wrath, where everyone lost hope in PvP really early, and then you only have this tiny little community of people actually doing the PvP. So yeah, we'll see, but really good change that they're getting rid of the teams. It's definitely, I definitely recommend people go watch Josh Corbett's interview with Brian Birmingham. If you want to go Google that, it's on his Twitch channel. Countdown to Classic, I think, is his YouTube, and I think it's on his YouTube as well. But he does a whole interview with Brian Birmingham where they talk for about half an hour, and he just kind of hits him with all the main questions. But I always get the feeling every time I listen to one of those interviews, it always just reinforces what I think about where the dev team is, and that they mean really well and they really want to do a lot of changes, but they're very time pressed. Like, anytime they answer the questions, it just feels like they're so just time pressed to try to get stuff done on time, that they don't have the time to really consider making big changes and such, because a lot of that is just on the back foot of after they do the main stuff they'd have to get done. Are you excited for Wrath though, or how do you feel about Wrath? Because I know initially when Wrath was talked about, you were not really that excited for Wrath.
I'm still not like that excited for Wrath, you know, like I can't really get excited for it until I've done like Sunwell and like a few times, you know. It's like one of those things where I understand the announcement, I understand why it needs to come out now. That's awesome, but I'm not like, I don't know, it doesn't make a big deal to me. It doesn't make a big difference to me.
Yeah, it's been interesting from my own side of things as well, where I look at it and I thought I'd be more excited for the Wrath announcement, but it feels like I've been let down by Blizzard so much that for me it's just like, okay, cool, Wrath is coming, and it's just continuation of the old WoW as we know it, and we'll see where it goes. But yeah, it'll be a good nostalgia kick, like Chat is saying. It'll be an interesting nostalgia kick to go back to Wrath again and see everything. But I don't know. It's weird because I just came back from Singapore like a week, basically unplugged, and it was interesting because I've been so involved with WoW for so long, like non-stop with making content, and like when I'm not making content, I'm raiding and trying to do like PvP and so much other stuff, that like having a week where I actually didn't really play WoW. I logged in just to barely do my raid at like an internet cafe and then logged back out. was very interesting to reconnect with the real world again, and not be playing video games all day.
I feel that. I feel that a lot. I know exactly what you're talking about. Like it feels awkward.
Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting. I do enjoy the mix though. I'm trying to. That's why today. That's why guys we're on a slightly later schedule than we normally do, because I've been trying to get my sleep schedule lined up perfectly with so that I wake up the same time, more healthy habits every day, to try to like make sure I got a good balance going. But I noticed, Irene, by the way, you haven't been streaming as much, because I had a look at your Twitch and I saw that, like, because usually I'm used to, like, if I go to Zarine's channel, I'm like, oh, Zarine has streamed 7 times in the last 7 days or something like that. But then I saw, like, yeah, you've been like less frequent with your streams.
I had a job interview in Texas that I had to fly to for like 3 days. So that was Sunday, Monday, Tuesday of last week. Didn't get back until Wednesday. And then Thursday I raided, or Wednesday I raided, Friday I raided, or sorry, I think Wednesday, Thursday, Friday I raided. I don't know which ones of those I streamed. And then I only did one of the weekend raids. And then I flew to see my girlfriend, and now I've been here. So I haven't really been streaming much in that regard. So
okay,
yeah, I took some days off because I had to go like be in a hotel room for a bit. Yeah. I wasn't gonna raid from there.
I see. But, so you've been doing the same thing as me, in a hotel room, and not really.
Yeah, a little unplugged, just a little bit, just a little. But yeah.
Oh, someone in chat asked, did we already talk about them releasing the raids 1 week after raft drops potentially?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Did they say 1 week or 2 weeks? I think they said 2, right? I don't remember if it was 1 week or 2 weeks. Somebody was saying like 2 weeks. Maybe they meant not available until week 2. What does that mean for world first speedrunners? Means it's not going to be a contest, really, like leveling wise. You don't have to route your leveling as much. Like leveling in Wrath of Lich King is quick compared to TBC and Classic, right?
It makes it really interesting for the world first race, right? Because the world first race then becomes not a function of purely like how hard you prepare, or it's still a function of that, but the prepare level drops a lot more, in that you don't need to do the progress level of preparedness where they went crazy pre-TBC. I was watching them do it in the guild, and they literally leveling entire new characters, having full quest banks logged in, like literally gearing them, raiding, getting the quest turn in items, and then not turning it in until launch. The amount of stuff they prepared was kind of crazy. Yeah, this definitely diminishes the amount of advantage like something like progress will have, in that now everyone's going to have that 1 week or 2 weeks or whatever it is to be prepared to then go into raids after that. There's such a much bigger window where things like we're not going to see the shenanigans of like the summoning team coming in and helping progress get a giant advantage, right? Because that's not going to be a thing. That everyone's just going to be there. It's like, oh, raids unlocked now, and everyone's just going to go do the raids. I'm kind of 2 months, because it's interesting to see the tech that comes from not having that put in, from not having everyone race from day one. But it's also interesting to see that the race will be a lot closer because of that. There's going to be a lot more guilds participating. So from a perspective of like the spectators, it's going to be a lot more tight of a race. Whereas in the past, it was just progress just runs away with it, like by far.
I mean, it's going to be race to Nax Ramesend again, right?
No, it'll be just like old times. It would be just like old times again. It'll be interesting because they have to be prepared for this. There's going to be a bigger potential for griefing as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, with like the raids unlocking at a set time, people could actually try to grief.
Actually, very true.
But yeah, I mean that's all I got, Zarine. You got anything else to add?
I know people don't like speedrun talk and shit like that, but I know that a lot of people have been saying like, hey, they're just still doing splits, and then Blizzard goes, by the way, shit ends in like 2 weeks, potentially 4 weeks is when Sunwell's out. And now everybody's like, wait a second. Because like that's been the copium that's been going around the speedrunning community, is like people are like, oh, you can be US #1 right now, it's fine, we're still doing splits. But like are people actually stopping doing splits now, or are people still just like we're splitting for glaives and shit? Because I don't know. There hasn't been like too many new runs popping up, and then the people who like were splitting when they try to speed run now, they like fail miserably at 1 or 2 points, and it just ruins the whole run, right? Like it takes a lot of attempts to get a good run in right now. It takes a lot of attempts to get a good run in, and you don't get to PTR. So I feel like the guilds like Rain and stuff like that are just way better equipped. Like I've watched Overclock's runs the last like 2 weeks. They reset like I think a combined like 5+ times between 2 days or 3 days to try and make it so that they had a perfect start before an Agentis. And then they do their whole run, they have a wipe, and then they're at 1 hour. Like they could easily get 58 minutes, 57 minutes if they just had more practice at that one part. And that's the thing, is the human error of one person fucking up an invis back-to-back days. I think they messed it up both days in the same spot, and they could have had like a 59, a 57. And I'm just like, these are the things that people need to practice and get more reps on, but you can't do it with PTR. So like you've only been hurting yourself if you haven't been like doing fast splits, right?
Yeah.
Like what is it? It's if I go to Benediction server, I believe up until recently, Rain was number 1 and number 3. Like our alt raids are faster than like everybody else's too, because we just keep trying and going faster. It's just like, why aren't people doing this overall? Like people should just be pushing their raids to go faster all the time. So I don't know. I thought the runs were starting. That's the thing, is I thought runs were starting, but like people, you can clearly tell when people are doing runs right now, and it's like they definitely like they need these 4 weeks to go really well for them, because putting up a good time with having 0 mistakes throughout the entire hour or whatever, it's hard. It's not easy. You have to like not mess up a single time, not have anybody in your raid mess up. Like yesterday I had a speed run messed up by somebody standing a little too close to another pack, and then the fear goes out, bad tremor ticks, boom, he pulls another pack, right? So it's just like like Noda has so many glaives, but they need to refine execution quickly. Yeah, exactly. Like that's the thing, is I think Noda have legitimately been doing it because they, like us, were already thinking of melee comp. Like I've been thinking of melee comp since the fucking beginning, right? Like, and I think Overclock also is doing a melee comp, if I remember correctly. They did, or I guess physical damage comp, but not to the extreme of us. They had 10 melees, we have 12. So yeah, in the raids, like we're definitely really melee heavy because we have 9 glaives, right? And I think we just got a 10th. And so we're figuring out what we're gonna do when we have like 6 sets of glaives or 7 sets of glaives, which there is potential for 7 because we run 6 warriors, 1 rogue. But it's like the damage just seems so much higher from those characters in a full run once they're geared than like a warlock, right? So that was kind of like the logic behind it for why we think that the cap on these is better. But also at the end of the day, I don't know if composition actually matters. Like I know this is going to sound bad, but it's like I think that right now with the number of weeks left, I don't think composition really matters that much, because I think you can get good numbers out of good players. Like I feel it too, because I speedrun in 3 raids, and like one of them is clearly better than the other 2, and then the other 2, between those 2, they're getting more and more even, but it comes down to just their damage. Like there's players in those raids who care more, and when I sit there and go like, why does this just seem slower? Like you're losing like 10 seconds per boss, and hey, there's 9 bosses. Guess what? You've lost 1.5 minutes just off of people's DPS not being like as good as it could be. Your hunters, are they all melee weaving, right? Trying to like milk as much damage as possible. Are they doing it correctly?
Did they have the right mouse software installed?
Right? Is that right? So yeah, it's just interesting to me, because I think that because you look at like the top 2 runs by noobs, and they have a boomkin in their run, which almost everybody else is abandoned at this point.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
Like pretty much everybody's abandoned boomkin and gone Dream State Druid is the way to go.
Yeah.
But they actually are using a boomkin, and my friend won't stop bothering me about it, because he's just like, guess what? Because he was in Rain, and they were like, we're not using a boomkin for speedruns anymore. And he's like, guess what China's doing? Because in noobs, both of their runs, they have a boomkin in both of them, right? And I think they use a boomkin, and I don't think they use an Ellie Shaman, I think is what it was. Yes, that's what it is. So they run 3 Resto Shamans. They don't use a Dream State Druid at all, and they use a Boomkin, like a pure Boomkin.
Huh.
So they don't have a Druid healer. It's a Holy Paladin, a Priest, and 3 Druids, or 3 Shamans, which we think 3 Shamans is definitely right as well. Like, we don't use a Holy Paladin, we use 2 Rets. But using a Boomkin, it would basically got down to your Warlocks. Like, this is my argument for, not using an Ellie Shaman, because we don't use an Ellie Shaman either now, is Warlocks don't need the hit anymore. So what would they rather have in their group? Would they rather have like a Boomkin or the Totem, right? And if you're going to use if you're going to like need the Fairy Fire anyway, why not give them 6% extra crit for your Warlocks if they're like the main part of your composition? So yeah, that was the argument at the end of the day. But yeah, they use a Boomkin. So I don't think comp really matters at the end of the day when it comes down to the nitty gritty. I think it really matters about the players.
How many guilds are even doing speedrun stuff right now?
Well, China is doing a lot. Like, China, for some reason, is just like all over this. Like, noobs never stop speedrunning nowadays, right? It's kind of their identity. Okay. TNB is actually really good. Statement just put up a good time on Venoxus, I think. And then Sunst. But there's like a lot of guilds that I don't recognize. Like, I only recognize like 4 guilds in the top 10, maybe 5 here. Yeah, I kind of recognize, like, I recognize Noobs, TNB, Rain, and then Luna, and then Infinite very recently from what I've seen. But yeah, it's like Space Force is number 12. I think there are definitely like I definitely think Space Force is running. I definitely think Overclock is running. People are trying to run more and more now, but I don't know if they realize that not doing fast splits or attempted speedruns the entire time hurts them. Because everybody's like, oh, we're just going to split until like 3 weeks before, and then we're all going to get in there and we're just going to do it and we're going to get it done, right? But like, you need like 3 good attempts to actually put up a good time, because somebody's going to mess up something somewhere most of the time, right? So like, that's why I think Noobs is going to end on top. I actually just think Noobs is going to end on top in this phase, because I just think that they have so much more practice than everybody else.
Interesting.
Like, they basically, it's the equivalent in my mind of they've been PTRing and nobody else has. Because they've been doing 2 super fast speed runs, and they're literally number 1 and 2. And their number one is 54 minutes and 57 seconds. So they're basically 55 minutes. And then their next run is a minute and 30 seconds slower than that. So like, everybody else in the entire world needs to shave off like 5 to 10% of their current time to even catch Noobs. It's stupid.
It does take time to adjust to the pacing. I do remember that a lot when I was raiding in multiple
Blade Flurry timings, right? You're like, I need Blade Flurry here, Blade Flurry here. And the thing is, as the run speeds up too, and you get even faster, you run into situations where you're like, okay, if I wrecked on this boss and then wrecked on that one, I won't have it again until the end of the run, right? Because I remember doing that before, where I was like, if I shield wall this pack, or if I challenging shout. I remember like we had scripted challenging shouts in Nax, and I would challenging shout. And then if we were going like at as we got better and better, I realized I had to keep adjusting where my challenging shout was, because I ran into one pack one time. They bought me. I pressed challenging shout. It had 10 seconds left on it. And I was like, we can't wait 10 seconds for my challenging shout at this point. Like, somebody else has to do it, or we have to like change where my first challenging shout is. So yeah, it just gets really weird when you start scripting things like that and start going faster and faster. It does take adjustment, because like I said, that could be a fucked up run right there, where you bought me. I don't have challenging shot for 15 seconds because we've been going faster than before, and boom, like 5 people lose world buffs. Like, it was definitely bad in Classic. In TBC, obviously, it's not as bad when people die. But
yeah, it takes a while to get into the habit of stuff again as well. If you haven't been speedrunning, or you haven't been keeping up with that pace, that's why I remembered it a lot when I was doing multiple raids. Just trying to adjust to the pacing difference when you haven't been doing it for a while. And like, your opener? Oh, my opener now? Like
2 point slice and dice?
2 point slice and dice into expose usually is what I do. Into like the standard rotation after that.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that's what I do as well. Is 2 point slice and dice into 5 point expose, and to pop all my cooldowns.
Yeah. Everyone's favorite topic, speedrun and rogue talk. But don't worry, guys. This timestamps, and maybe I'll put this towards the end of the podcast when I cut it up later. But yeah, guys, we will see you next time. And thanks for joining us for Prepared. Catch you later.
Yep. See you guys.